Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode. I think this is episode 9 for Beyond the Inflection Point by Marion Street Capital. Today I have with me Jay Aigner from JDAQA. Did I get that right? Okay,
Crushed it. Well
awesome.
done.
Jay, why don't we jump right into it? Tell us about JDAQA, and then we'll get into how did you wind up starting this company?
Yeah. And it's always an honor to be the ninth podcast. I think that's what you want to be on everybody's podcast. Lucky number 9. I appreciate it.
Kind of like the 11th guy for like
Yeah,
your
I'm the 11th or
girlfriend,
the
right?
sixth man, 11th man, however you want to say it. Yeah, so JDAQA is a software testing firm. We're a services firm based out of Bucks County, PA. We have a fully remote distributed QA team. We have an onshore team in the United States, offshore team in the Philippines. And we work with software development shops, typically dev shops or SaaS companies. HealthTech SaaS is a big vertical of ours. And we handle their outsourced testing needs, whether it's kind of a full QA as a service where it's just like, oh my God, everything's broken. We can't get the builds out. Like, what's going on? Why can't we test this fast enough? Or if it's implementing, automation to increase efficiency for, builds that go out the door. We'll do staff augmentation. So if you have a good QA team, you just need a couple good people. We have a really strong bench we've built up. And then we've got project-based stuff like test case migrations, automation migrations, et cetera, that we partner with a lot of the QA tools companies out there to be their, regional service integrators to get their product into the hands of people that, could and should be using it. So that's what we do. Our COO is over in Ohio. Her name's Autumn. She's fantastic. And she kind of helps keep the, my insanity in check and the rest of the company on the track. So that's who we are.
That's fantastic. So I'm going to ask you more about the company because I find this space super interesting, especially in this modern AI age. But before we do that, tell me how you got here. How did you wind up starting and leading and growing a QA testing company?
By being a bad developer. I didn't want to be a developer. I went to school to make video games in Florida, and I still do game development stuff on the side. But I went to school. Actually, my roommate caught up with me the first time about 15 years. He's leading a company that has the #1 VR video game in the world right now called Gorilla Tag. And like being around that level of any skill based profession, I was equated to being an author, right? Like I think anybody could be an author, but to be, a really good author, like there takes, another level. And I didn't feel like I had that in development. And I was, I loved it, but I didn't think I was gonna be great at it. I got bailed out. There was a program by a company up here in Philadelphia. They were partnering with Full Sail down in Florida, where they're flying people up and interviewing for QA positions. So it was a touchscreen game company. We used to make the touchscreen bar top games that you can photo hunt and those things. So I cut my teeth with those guys. Stayed there for a while. Got to do game design eventually, which is what I really wanted to do. Spoiler alert: that industry sucks for anybody that's listening. Like it is not a fun. Like it's entertainment. It's a tough space to be in. But it was fun and it was good. But I had a growing family that I needed to kind of step out and look for a little bit of a higher salary to support them. Bounced around to a bunch of startups. Eventually started doing freelancing on the side. Found Upwork years ago. Actually elance.com, I think back then, and they got bought by Upwork. My wife was an overnight nurse at the time. Pediatric long-term care facility, like just like stuff that I could never do. And I love to play the hero, so I was trying to get her out of that. Started to do consulting on the side. Got up a good book of business. Was taking calls like on breaks in the stairwell at my 9 to 5 job, and taking walks and like doing all sorts of stuff. And I always take pride in the fact that I gave them everything in my 9 to 5. But when there was times that I could do it before work, and a lunch break or like after work or whatever, I really put the work in and built up a pretty good business. So eventually just didn't have enough hours in the day, the week, the month. Started to pull into people I used to work with. My old boss at Megatouch, I brought over to work at a couple of places, and just slowly built the company up over, I guess, 8 or 9 years now, to where we have 60-ish folks. There's a team in the Philippines, team in the United States, and we, have grown a lot even in the last year to where we've kind of refocused our efforts on Philadelphia. We want to be the QA firm of Philadelphia. Like if we can own this space and we can, and there's a lot of opportunity for us here. I think the sky's the limit, and I always believe in the hometown discount. So it's like, why would I not try? Our most successful campaign in history was Go Birds, right? It started with Go Birds, and we got more responses from that outbound campaign than anything we'd ever gotten. And the light bulb kind of went off, like, oh, I should just dig into this and kind of be the QA guy of Philadelphia. So a little bit of a long-winded story, but that's kind of how we started and progressed to where we are today.
So essentially, you problem solved your way into entrepreneurship, which is different from a lot of people, I think, who hear of the glamorous side of entrepreneurship and kind of dive in head first and then get smacked in the face with, wow, this is really hard.
There was a problem to be solved for sure. And I think you hit on a really key point there. And it's something I hear. I mean, I've done 250 episodes of my show, and I've heard from lots of founders, and some of them I'm surprised how loosely they have defined the problem that they're solving. And it's, it's not a surprise why a lot of small businesses fail, because it is pitched as glamorous and it is pitched as this like freedom and ultimate flexibility and et cetera, et cetera. But if you're not solving somebody's problem, and more than one person, by the way, if you're not solving a market's worth of problem, your runway may be pretty short in whatever business you're trying to run. So yes, I always say, like, we're I need a better analogy. I say we're like the funeral home of like a funeral home. Like, you're gonna come to us eventually, right? Like, eventually you're gonna need QA for your product. So it's not going anywhere. Even with all this other crazy AI stuff, it's not going anywhere. And we're the janitors essentially of the software development lifecycle. And a lot of times companies don't want to build that in-house. So here we are to kind of solve that problem for them.
I mean, for a smaller medium dev shop, does it make sense for them to build that in-house?
It doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, companies want to build cool stuff. Like, that's what they're really good at. Do what you're really good at is what we tell everybody. You don't want your project managers and your developers and even your CEO doing QA before a build goes out every day, right? So yes, it gives them flexibility that they don't have in a space that they're not strong in anyway. So it's kind of a win-win to take it off their plate, and all the clients we have, we do a really good job of establishing kind of an organizational, excellence around QA, and then deploy that across each of their projects as they come out. So for us, it's great because we get integrated in all their new projects, and it's for them, it's great. It's just something they don't have to worry about, and they don't have to throw it over the client and be like, oh yeah, you might want to check this out before we push this out to production. They're ready to go when their cycle ends. So yeah, it gives them some flexibility, and for small, medium, and even large dev shops, it's a really good model for them to not have a W2 footprint and not have to worry about building, growing, and kind of sustaining this infrastructure of testing that they don't really care to know about.
Yep. So talk to me about, I want to pursue a thread on two different themes related to QA testing in today's environment. Number one's AI. What are you guys seeing on both sides? Number one, like the increase in use amongst your clients and what that means for the quality of the product that their teams plus AI produce. And then number two, on your side, how you guys might be using AI to improve the efficiency of your own business.
Yeah, I mean, I hope everybody vibe codes every app from here out, because it gives us lots of opportunity to address the quality of the applications. I mean, I say that kind of tongue in cheek, but it's also very true. Like, if you use AI correctly, for the most part today, it's not a magic wand. It's a optimizer. It's a magnitude, order of magnitude increased efficiency. But if you just write something in AI and deploy it to production, you're going to have all sorts of security issues and all sorts of stuff that it just doesn't think of. And God forbid you try to integrate it with some other system or some other, third party thing. There's a lot to be done, and it's fantastic. I love it. And I code on my own all the time. So we certainly have seen our clients using it more. We've seen some of those using it well, and then some of that struggle a little bit, and then some that just said, we're fine the way it is right now. The bigger kind of older clients are a little bit slower to integrate some of that stuff. But from the quality of an application perspective, I think there's a lot of opportunity for us to kind of be the beacon of quality in this whole world. Like, the whole world is shifting over to this bang, 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 let's get it out. But the quality still has to be there. Nobody's going to use your product, right? Like nobody's going to buy your app or download your app and use it if it constantly crashes or if there's all these issues or whatever. So from that side of things, I just see greenfield opportunity. From our side, obviously ChatGPT, just intense usage, and I think I might have to shut the business down if it ever goes away, just because of the ridiculous amount of efficiency we gain in doing proposals and like digesting a bunch of different calls and kind of trying to like pull a thread through and understand like, all right, what do they really need from us in this moment, where we'll kind of give them back a problem statement after all the stuff that we talk about, and we go, all right, this is what we and the entire internet think about, what your actual problem is. So we use it internally for that, operationally, OKRs, all sort of goal setting stuff. We use it for that. And then as far as our tool set, again, we are huge fans of tools. I mean, I love tools in general. It's like a weird kind of thing to say, but I am a tools nerd. Like I do love having a very specific, set of tools for the jobs that we need to get done, whether it's performance testing or regression testing or, automation or test case management, whatever. There's a million tools for it. And some of those, like Test Rigger, one of our newer partners, they're a Gen AI automated testing, platform where basically it's the same concept as vibe coding, where you can very quickly easily spin up an infrastructure of automation, right? You can say test all these different things in natural language and it'll come back to you with a bunch of steps of like how it went through and tested it. Now also, like vibe coding, I wouldn't just deploy that and like hope that was the right fix. So it's an efficiency gainer from a, hey, we built you this scaffolding, now go through and kind of massage that to be correct. But even that approach, saves you 50% of the time, like just manually going through and setting up automated tests and making sure they work and hook them into the CI/CD pipeline, all this different stuff. So yes, we use it as an efficiency gainer on our side. We use it in our IDEs when we're writing playwright tests and stuff like that. We all, but we're a big fan of, exercising AI in the tools that we use on a daily basis, not as much us deploying some sort of AI QA thing to the space. We're just kind of riding on the backs of the people who spend the time to really invest in a AI product. And the good ones bubble up to the top, just like everything else. And we found some really good ones that we use on a daily basis now. So yeah, we're all in on it, but trying to do it in a responsible, non-hype kind of way.
Makes sense. Okay, so that's theme number one with respect to QA and software development. Theme number two, immigration.
Okay.
What's your sense as to how aggressively this administration has moved with respect to immigration and the impact that has both on your customers and perhaps on your own job?
I hope the answer continues to be none. We do have an offshore team in the Philippines. We've had nearshore teams in Mexico. We've had people kind of all around the world. We've settled on the Philippines because we love the people there and they work really hard and they're very smart and technically trained. So for the most part, we, as with a lot of the news that have, tariffs and a bunch of other stuff that have really thrown a lot of companies for a loop, I feel very fortunate that we haven't really had a big impact. So I'm hoping, if we talk again in a couple months, the answer is still no, because we do take, we use the cost savings and the difference of the economy, from here to there to kind of give that benefit onto our customers, where they can, they can efficiently, effectively, and very, very thoroughly make sure their platform is ready to go, while not, coming in full US based team, which is going to be an exorbitant cost. Now we do have companies that work with government, with government entities that we, have full US based teams on, and that's great. But they're also able to pay more, so it offsets the margin that we have to pay our guys. So it's all a dance, it's all a balance. And as an agency, I always say, like, you either have too many people and not enough clients, or too many clients and not enough people, and it's just this seesaw you have to manage. So we haven't had any direct impact. It's just managing our normal resource versus client balance that we have to deal with.
That's great to hear. Let's turn our attention for a minute to how you grow JDAQA, your go-to-market strategy, if you will. You host a podcast. Talk to me about the podcast.
Somebody told me my buddy who runs a marketing agency was talking about his podcast, and he's like, "Oh, you should start a podcast." I'm like, "That's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. I don't listen to podcasts. I don't care about. That's so stupid." Um, and then it kind of grew on me a little bit. I tried to launch one with one of my friends. He kind of bailed on me, and then I was like, "All right, well, I still do kind of like this idea," and I say I made like a huge mistake, but it was actually kind of a great thing. Is I used Dripify, one of the automated, LinkedIn outreach platforms, um, to send an invitation to everybody in my network that had founder in it, and that was like 800 people. And I was like, man, a couple people reply back, and I got like 300 yeses to that.
Wow.
So it became like my job to do these. Now, you could argue like maybe it wasn't the best use of time because I was interviewing like all sorts of different people that had nothing to do with what we do. I did start to like it and start to enjoy it. I mean, like you get to meet people, and like before the show and after the show, I've met a lot of people that I've stayed friends with since then. But I would definitely say over the last year or two, we've honed it. Um, we don't really just take anybody anymore. You have to be, basically a qualified lead at the end of the day to get into being on the podcast at this point. Um, it matches the way I do business development. I don't pitch it really anybody. I don't. My biggest fear is that there's a relationship that I lose because I pitch them directly that I would have won 6 months later when they needed me, as opposed to
Hmm.
just shutting the door because I'm like, hey, do you need QA service? And they're like, dude, just get out of my face. So
Yes.
it served that very well. And it's also, I learned from my friend Chris Sierra, who runs ArcWeb, years ago. He's like, when you're at conferences and you have somebody you want to talk to that's doing a speech, he's like, sack the quarterback, right? So he's like, when they're off stage, you run up, you be the first one to talk to them off stage. And I've really integrated that into any events that I go to. And it's a very easy pitch to somebody to say, "Oh my God, I love that talk you did. You did fantastic. This thing and this thing. I would love to have you on my podcast to hear your story about." And that has worked 95% of the time. And it's people that I want to talk to, right? So we pre-vet our events. We know who's going to be speaking. We go there with an idea of like, these are the people that I want to talk to. These are the people I want to get on the podcast. We don't go after CTOs or CIOs or any other Cs except for CEOs and founders, typically, unless it's a CTO co-founder, because we want to establish a relationship with somebody who's not in the tech side. We want to get that introduction to the tech side by creating a relationship with the CEO. So now we have campaigns and all sorts of other ways to connect with CTOs and CIOs and meet those guys. But as far as the podcast goes, we've really just reshaped it to go like, all right, who are the HealthTech, SaaS, and Dev Shop owners in Philadelphia, this quarter, since these last 2 quarters were HealthTech, SaaS, and Dev for our targets. Like, who are they? How do we talk to them? Let's get them on the podcast. And that's just been our approach. And it's worked really well. And like I said, I think the 5 minutes before and the 5 minutes after, um, are really good opportunities to get to know somebody. You set a, date for lunch later. My wife calls me the chief lunch officer because like that's all I really do is just have lunches with everybody. But anyway, long story short, it's a tool to meet people that you maybe wouldn't have the opportunity to meet without a lot more work, right? I mean, you can get a call with just about anybody you want if you are persistent enough and you have the right messaging and you're not, salesy and annoying. But it just cuts all that down and makes it very easy for us to talk to the people we want to talk to, build a relationship, which we're all about. And as you know, like it's easier to do that once you've kind of warmed somebody up, you hear their story, and then at the end, you're kind of like, hey, let's continue this conversation in some other form. And even in that 5 minutes after, I'm not pitching anybody. I'm not saying, hey, let's go do QA stuff. What are you doing for QA? Like I don't ever want to come off as disingenuous. I mean, I think we all
Mhm.
know we're doing a job here and we're all part of just a machine that's doing different things. But I do try to keep the relationship open so that when they have that need, they're going to come back to JDAQA, which, there's checks on my desk right now that have come from that effort. So it does work. It's just, you got to get it spun up. You got to get the initial guests on, you got to build it up. And then it starts to kind of become this, momentum based machine that you can kind of build some business development off of.
That's fantastic. You've done what you said, 350 episodes?
250, I
The
think. I think we're at
250?
250 now. I think so. Yeah. Yeah. I think
That's
so.
fantastic. We're a long way away from that,
You'll
but
get there.
I,
You'll be
I
there
love
before you
your
know it.
philosophy. I think that approach, that's the new approach, right? The direct sales thing. I feel like almost every business I talk to these days who used to lean on that type of approach acknowledges it's not working.
I think it works if you hit people at the right time still,
Sure.
which, I think it has always been that way. Maybe people are like more receptive or replied more to cold email or
Mm.
LinkedIn or whatever. I do hear the same thing you hear all the time, that it just doesn't work. And I don't know. I always take all that with a grain of salt, because I'm like, it still works for me. Like, I can reach out to a CTO on LinkedIn today, start a relationship, start some conversations, have a call or lunch, and then like they, when they need me, or if they need me right then we're locked in and ready to go. But yeah, I have definitely heard that same sentiment that, cold outreach doesn't work anymore. But like you said, there's a bunch of other things that come into play there, I think, than just,
No doubt.
and if they need it at the right time, let's go, right?
Hmm. Talk to me about the Go Birds campaign.
The Copirds. So at some point, I don't know why or when, I definitely, I think, oh, you know what it was? It was the 2022 Eagles run. We're huge Eagles fans in this house. There's a season ticket banner behind me there.
My house too.
There you go. See, there you
Yep.
go. Okay, we'll have to talk about that after the podcast about Sunday's craziness. But I reached out. At some point, there's a guy had a podcast called. It doesn't matter what it's called, but his name was Ben Albert, and he was the business. He's like doing business connection stuff in Rochester, New York, and I had him on the
I
podcast.
grew up in Rochester.
Did you? There you go.
Yep.
Maybe you know Ben Albert from Balbert Marketing. And he said, I want to be the business connections guy of Rochester, New York. And I was like, what a dumb thing to want to be. Like, that makes there's nobody there. Like, why would you want? And then like, it just, again, like I think that's my first reaction to a lot of things, but then I let it marinate, and I was like, oh my God, like that's the smartest thing to do if you live near any sort of market. Like, why would you not focus here? Like, you have so many free introductions, whether it's actual introductions from people because they're in the same city, whether it's a sports thing, whether there's some sort of event that's happening in your like whatever it is, like just use whatever you can possibly use to get that first wedge in the door to get somebody to say hello. So in 2022, ran a campaign. Literally the first two words of the connection message on LinkedIn were "Go Birds." Astronomical compared to every other campaign we've ever run. Like I said, it was during the 2022 or 2021 playoff run. We went to the Super Bowl and then we lost. So then we did a follow-up campaign, which I called Kill Shot, which maybe wouldn't call it that these days. But it was basically take that list that I had sent everybody to, and then send an immediate follow-up, maybe like a few days later, and just said like, hey, how are you guys doing with QA? And again, that's kind of counter to what I said a few minutes ago about kind of pitching people. But if you hit enough people and you find enough people at the right time, people are going to be interested, right? And it's a very specific part of the process that a lot of people don't like to deal with, and they have the problem a lot. So again, like, we're talking to people who have a high probability that they will have some sort of QA issue, whether they don't have enough people or like, oh my God, we've tried automation 50 times and we just can't get it started. Like, whatever it is, they have some need there. So we're hitting high value targets with pretty direct and like very specific messaging. And anyway, so that campaign, I think, we converted probably 5 or 6 long-term clients, and like our long-term clients are 150 to 250 grand a year. Like, they're big investments into their infrastructure. But those came from that campaign. So again, I preach it to everyone, like, hometown discount, use every single possible wedge you can. And I see so many people that are just like, well, it doesn't work. And I'm like, but you're not finding the way to talk to them that gets their attention. I had a guy, I'm like a super nerd. I had a text-based multiplayer online video game running in my basement for years. People would log on, it's all text-based. It was just like the nerdiest thing you could ever imagine. I had a prospect that I was going after, and I looked back at the message history. It was like 2 or 3 years of just like, hey man, like, how's it going? Like, blah, 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 blah. I was scrolling through his LinkedIn profile one time, and I saw that he had made one of those games that it's called a MUD, multi-user dungeon game. And he made one. And I was like, dude, that's so crazy. You made that. I made one on mobile. And he's like, if you want to get me talking, talk about that. Right. And so like that started a relationship, and now they're a client of ours. And it took years and years and years. So my point is, it doesn't matter if it's Go Birds, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, you have to just get their attention for a second, and then you can start to build a relationship, which is why I think that campaign was so successful.
Jay, I wholeheartedly agree with you. The art of modern sales and marketing is all about capturing attention from the type of target whose attention you want.
Yep.
That's the art. And
That's it.
it's much easier said than done, for sure.
It is. You have to have that mindset. Like a lot of people just don't even think that way. It's shocking to me how many people don't know their ICP. Like established companies that are making money, like they make a lot of money, and you go like, all right, well, if we want to partner together, we'll give you a list of our existing clients, you know, just to like start to work through who'd be a good introduction for you, etc. Like, who is your you know, ideal fit so we can start to send those over. And they're just, you know, well, we service these people and we do that and we serve this. And as soon as they go down that path, I'm like, there's another one that just doesn't have it fully defined. So you can be successful without it, but I think you can be
It's a lot
way
harder.
more successful, and it's way harder if you're just kind of guessing. And we still have realizations all the time. I was just thinking about the other day. We have kind of specific messaging for CTOs, but then I was meeting director of engineering and director of solutions architecture and director of this and director of that. And like from the outside, you're like, oh, they're just like a tech guy that may have a QA problem, but they all have different, like one guy, director of engineering, may only manage engineers. So he doesn't give a
Mhm.
shit about, you know, what you're selling or doing because it doesn't impact what his job is. Like, why would he care? So trying to just be super specific about who you're talking to and what their day-to-day problems would be, because if you don't speak to one of them, they're not going to want to talk to you.
It makes perfect sense. Feel free to use this on any of your customers who may be confused about their ICP. We do this exercise. We ask them to make a list of their the top five clients with whom they like working the most, right? And
Mm-hmm.
usually there's a lot of, uh, it's pretty easy to get multiple stakeholders to align there. Then we
Mm-hmm.
ask them, give us your top five most profitable clients. And there the answers could be all
Right.
over the map, you know,
Yep.
based on where they sit and their perception. But
Yep.
then we like to help them target that kind of nexus. Like, here's how to
Mm-hmm.
get more customers that actually make you money that don't drive you nuts.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I think that's why we've had like 20 or 30% year over year growth for the past few years, is because, and we were trying to figure out why. And then we're like, oh, it's because we let all our crappy customers go. We just focus on the ones that are good customers and that pay us well and actually pay us on time, which is a whole
Yeah,
separate
yeah,
story.
that's another big, super
But it's
big
another,
piece.
it's another piece of it. But yeah,
Yep.
understanding who that was, and calling out some of the less than ideal customers has just, you know, made everything else more streamlined and better.
Speaking my language there. A quick plug for Rochester, New York, because you brought it
Okay.
up. Huge entrepreneurial history there. So the guy that wants to be, you know, the master connector in
Yeah.
Rochester,
Yeah.
I totally respect that because
I'll have to
it
connect you. I'll connect you with the
definitely
guy from there, and then you'll, all right, perfect. I'll do that.
awesome. Okay, so Jay, I I love your approach. It sounds like JDAQA is well poised to be, I mean, you may already be the top QA firm in Philadelphia and certainly poised for growth. What would you consider to be your firm's biggest challenge at this point?
Me, I'm the biggest challenge. I'm the by far. My team is the best. It's just incredible. We have awesome people, and they run most of the organization. But yeah, I mean, I think just me continuing to improve my sales ability and investing in the right things and making the right decisions. Because, you know, as a CEO, like you can do whatever you want, which is a good and a bad thing. And just continuing to be more disciplined, to continue to support the team, and like I said, try to really make smart investments in the company. Right, go to the right conferences, go to, you know, so many people just go to all these conferences and you're like, what are you doing? Like, why, you know? So we went to one in Denver last week, and it's for a group called 7 CTOs, and there's like hundreds of CTOs in there. And I literally spent like 5 days with like 30 or 40 CTOs. And like, even if no deal converted from there, just to spend that much time with prospective clients and hearing what their actual problems are and hearing how they deal with stuff and how they solve problems is like so powerful and so beneficial. So I honestly think, you know, the next lever of, you know, growth is going to be continuing to find and attend and sponsor those conferences that our customers are going to be at. And it's obviously just one of like a, you know, multi-channel approach that we're doing. But yeah, to answer your question, it's continuing for me to dial in and continue to grow my skill set so I can continue to support the company, in whatever way they need me.
Fantastic. I, Jay, we're bumping up on time here, so I'm going to ask you what I like to ask is my final question. What is the one thing that our audience could do that would be most helpful to you and or your firm?
It's a great question, and you told me this was coming, and I'm still don't have an answer. What could people do to help us? That's a great question. I would say, um, you know, be part of, if you're in the Philadelphia area, be part of the Philadelphia tech community. We have
Hmm.
so many disparate pieces and people around the greater Philadelphia region that I think the more people get involved in, whether it's Philly startup leaders or if it's PACT or if it's Philly Chamber of Commerce or if it's NetCedar, like there's a million different groups. And I think just showing up at those and networking, I mean, if you're in tech and you run engineering teams, we'll meet you eventually because we're at all those things. So I think, just being involved helps the community, which helps us, and then that helps the community. And it's kind of a cycle where like we're trying to make better software for Philadelphia companies. And if people aren't at these events and aren't out and about, then we don't get to meet them as much. So I think just being an active member of the community is probably the best thing I could ask for.
I love that answer. We would fully support that. And you
Awesome.
mentioned a couple of places that we definitely like to hang out.
Awesome.
Uh, Jay, I appreciate all your time today, and I'd like to thank the audience for making the time to tune in to another episode of Beyond the Inflection Point.
Thanks for having me.